If wanting to change was enough, you wouldn't still be stuck in the same old patterns that feel like you're sabotaging yourself. And you know what I'm talking about. You desperately want to stop doing that thing or start something new. And you think about it and you say you're going to do it, and yet you just can't stop. So why is it that even when we know better, we keep doing the same thing? The answer might surprise you because it's not what we've been taught about habits at all. Hi, welcome back to A Sharper Life. I am your host, Nikki Sharp, a 2-time best-selling author, wellness expert, and your personal transformation coach. Now, today I wanted to do an episode all about how to make changes that actually last, how to stop habits that are creating sabotage. And this is a follow-up episode from my last one, which was why New Year's resolutions do not work. Here's the biggest reason why habits are so freaking hard to break: because your brain doesn't like uncertainty. Your brain doesn't like uncertainty, and changing something that has become automated and gives us the reward loop, which we'll talk about, we're going now into something that feels unfamiliar, and it is as simple as that. So I'm going to explain why you have such a hard time actually sticking with habits, new habits, and why we keep self-sabotaging. But more importantly, I'm going to give you the 5 things, and if you follow these, especially the last one, I guarantee that you will be setting yourself up for success, because these are the things that you need to do in order to successfully make a change, keep it, and adopt it as a new habit, not just a thought pattern. So let's dive into habits here. What is a habit? It is an action that you do repeatedly. Now, a habit becomes an actual habit when it gets automated within the brain circuitry. And this is where neuroplasticity and neural pathways come into play. So if you wake up every morning and the first thing you do is check your phone, that is now strengthening the neural pathway and the reward center, the dopamine that you get from picking up your phone. Let me back up a second. I feel like I want to explain this in the most both scientific but simple to understand way. So habits get stuck because the brain creates very strong neural pathways or shortcuts. So you then don't have to think about things. You're not making a choice. This is why people like, if you've heard about it, read about it, Steve Jobs used to wear the same outfit every single day. Zuckerberg does the same thing. The reason that someone does that is because they're no longer having to make a decision. It's become automated within the brain. And so the more that we do something, the stronger it becomes. Now, you might actually be addicted to negative thinking. For example, it's not just food and alcohol and substances and things like that we get addicted to. Addiction comes when we have repeated the thought or the behavior enough times where it becomes habit. So again, habits get stuck because it creates a very strong neural pathway, so neural plasticity, and with repetitive actions, it makes them automatic, energy efficient, just like wearing the same thing every single day. And I want you to think about, have you ever had just like decision fatigue? I know I have, especially recently with the move and thinking about this and that and what do I do? And oh my God, which couch do I get? And where do I hang this one mirror? And suddenly it feels like every decision is life or death. And that is because it's setting off your brain into overdrive. And your prefrontal cortex is basically going offline. Your amygdala is taking over. There's a whole bunch of different things that happen. But this is why habits become so ingrained, because we then have emotional connection with them. So now you have something that you've been doing repeatedly. It's become energy efficient within your brain. And here is the key piece. It is driven by cue, routine, reward loops. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that there is a cue. So you going and, let's say, having the glass of wine, right? You get home after a long day. The cue is that you're home after something stressful happened. The routine is we've done the action enough times, and the reward is what you're getting dopamine from. And so what happens is we do something based on an emotional response, whether it's good or bad. We're feeling bad, and so I'm going to have a drink to feel better, right? Like after work, or I'm stressed, or so if you're feeling, let's say, bad, you want to feel better if you've just gone through a breakup and you're like, oh man, I'm going to go eat the ice cream. Why? Because it's sweet, it's sugary, it's giving your body that kind of that love feeling. The sweetness it activates all of that within us. So we're getting these super quick dopamine hits. And when they are linked with emotion, the greater the emotional connection and the greater the comfort zone that you're in, and as well as ingrained self-concepts, your identity. So I'm a smoker, I'm not a smoker, I'm a drinker, I am an alcoholic, I am an insomniac, whatever we're putting after the I am. What then happens is you try to rely on willpower. And this is not possible. Willpower does not work because your brain is so smart and all of these different places and areas. So there's something called the basal ganglia, and this is basically like region and network of your brain that helps with habits. It's what creates autopilot. Not that you need to know that, but that part of the brain overrides your prefrontal cortex, which is your conscious thoughts. Your prefrontal cortex is the decision making. So all of a sudden, you come home from a really hard day, or you get a text message that triggers you, and your automatic part of the brain, and because you've done it enough and it's tied to emotional release, it's going to be really hard to override the willpower when your brain says, I'm not going to do that thing. And I'm going to give you a really quick example on this just to kind of sum up all the science that I said. So yesterday, I've recently moved. It's been both amazing but super stressful. And yesterday I had these guys come in to put my bed together. It was great. Starting to feel good. And then I get a text message from my dad. And the text message, I had said that I was going to call. I've been busy. I didn't. And so his message to me was not really like the nicest. It wasn't mean, but it was an unnecessary message. And so I wrote back and said, or you could ask me, how's the move going, Nikki? Which it's been pretty overwhelming and stressful. But anyways, I will call you on Sunday. And I did a little smiley face. And he wrote back, I'm not going to read it, but he wrote back something that I got highly triggered by. Now, in the past, I would have spiraled immediately. I would have gotten super angry or just reactive. And instead, I took a beat. So I was this is how we change habits, by the way, is we have to become aware of our reactions. This is so important. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, in order to change a habit, you have to understand the trigger before you then do the thing. That's it. That's it. That's the whole podcast, you guys. If you understand your trigger and your responses, you will succeed far more than most people. So anyways, with this story, I was able to recognize that, yeah, okay, that was not very cool. I sent it to my therapist and I was like, what do I even do with this? Like, WTF? And as the day went on, and here's what's interesting, my natural tendency, and being just totally honest, is I like a glass or two of red wine. It's I've had it enough times that it makes me feel comfortable and it calms my nervous system. It calms my brain down. It kind of allows me to stop thinking and kind of just be on. And I do it when I'm in a calm space like my house. So I found that I went to yoga I did this delicious yin yoga class. And in the class, I kept telling myself, do not have wine tonight. Do not have wine tonight. And if you listen to my resolutions episode, which I highly recommend, if we say things in the negative, guess what you're going to do? You're going to crave it. You're going to want it. So I then recognized afterwards that I was going to have wine regardless. It was just going to happen. So I could either beat myself up about it, or I could give into temptation, which is just reaffirming the very habit that I'm trying to break, right? But I met myself with more kindness and compassion. And what I recognized, and this was a really, really interesting one for me, was that even though I've now had a different reaction initially, there's still a further point of the habit that I want to work on. And it was very, very fascinating to see how much emotion that brought up. The anger was a big one. And so what did I then do? I tried to subconsciously, not even totally recognizing it, numb the discomfort that I was feeling. So this is why, on the purest baseline of why it is so freaking hard to change habits and why we get stuck, is because there is a reward loop that happens associated with a cue or a trigger and the routine that we have. So let me give you some other reasons, and these are all really interesting. I highly recommend having a pen and paper for this, or just jotting down in your notes. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. You guys know that I love to tangent and share a bunch of the science and stories, but I'm going to try and keep these not too long. So the reasons that we cannot break habits, and these are all scientifically true and proven and research backed. Number one is that the habit still gives us something. Just as I gave you the story from last night, the habit gave me relief. Drinking wine, even after a nighttime yoga class, made me feel better. And it also allowed me to feel the emotion that earlier in the day I was maybe too overwhelmed to do. So the habit still gives you something. It could be relief. It could be comfort. It could be distractions. If it didn't work on some level, that the habit is giving you some relief or comfort, it wouldn't exist. And the more emotions that are tied into this. So when you think about, how do you feel when you're stressed out? Are you feeling anger or overwhelm or fear? So the greater the emotional response that's going on, the bigger the attachment to the habit is going to happen. This is really where and what addiction is. So if you think about when you're bored, what do you do? What habits do you have when you're bored? Do you doom scroll? Do you sit there and watch TV? Do you start to just negative loop spiral and compare yourself? We all have something. So your habit is still giving you some form of relief, control, or comfort. Number two is that we expect the urge to disappear immediately. Again, why I told you this story of last night, even though I'm doing so much work and inner work and I'm so proud of myself for so many things, I still had the urge last night. And here's what happens. You then expect it to disappear immediately just because you decided to make a change. And when it doesn't, you assume that you failed. Think about that one. Let that one land. Number three is we confuse the craving with failure. So just because I had the craving for wine because I was feeling a little emotionally off kilter last night, what happens in the human brain is that we start to think we are a failure. And if you're thinking you're a failure, what's going to happen? Are you going to continue trying to do this new habit? Or are you going to go back to what's familiar? And cravings, here's something really interesting to know and remember, is that cravings are part of the rewiring. It is not proof that you're weak, but your brain is going to say, I'm weak, I'm a failure, I fucked up. Well, fuck it. Might as well start over Monday. So we have to be a little gentle with ourselves, because the very habit, and God, please remember this, write this one down. The very habit that you are trying to break overnight took you days and weeks and years for it to become as strong of a habit as it is. And yet here you are saying, within 1 week, I'm going to stop drinking or I'm going to stop smoking. You did not become addicted or start smoking 2 packs of cigarettes or 1 pack or 8 a day overnight. So we got to change the way that we're looking at how we break the patterns, because if it didn't happen overnight to create that habit, it's not going to break overnight. Yet you think of yourself as a failure when you get a craving or when you do the very thing you're trying not to. Now, the next one, and oh God, these are so important to understand, and I don't know why they're not talked about more, but breaking habits means facing the unknown, the unfamiliar, which is daunting. And guess what? Your brain defaults to regular routines. Why? Because the brain wants safety. The brain wants safety. And when you're doing something unfamiliar, it is literally saying to the brain, wait, this doesn't feel known. And the more dysregulated you are in the nervous system, the more unsafe you're going to feel. Next one is that your identity is tied to the very habit that you're trying to break. So your self-image, example, I am a smoker. It acts as a blueprint in your mind and goes into your subconscious, which is 90% of your brain. Your conscious mind is around 10%. Yet we think that just by saying, I'm going to change, I'm going to quit smoking, it's going to happen. There's a reason, by the way, that, and I don't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but it's something like 80% or some astronomical number, it could be even higher, of people who went on the show The Biggest Loser gained all of, and then some of the weight back within 2 years. So why is it that just because you went and you changed your actions and you changed the way that you're eating and you're doing things differently and all of a sudden you're seeing results and you feel good? So what's the problem there? Why did it not last? The statistics about those who win the lottery and go bankrupt within 1 year, I mean, it's astronomical. There is a reason why, and that is because your identity, your self-image is actually so tied to this habit that saying, I'm going to quit smoking, but you tell people I'm a smoker, now we're going to have a problem because there's a conflict of beliefs and values occurring. So the blueprint, this is why you need to understand your values. We'll talk more about it, but it makes it so hard to act contrary to the identity. Just like with The Biggest Loser, they go home, and that's when they all said that was the hardest time to maintain. If you've ever watched the show, it's a bunch of people that are highly overweight, obese, and they go through kind of this few-month program, boot camp with trainers, and it's televised, and they're given temptation challenges, and they lose a shitload of weight, right? They're exercising for hours a day, and they're eating cleaner, and they have the motivation from each other. But when they go home, that's where they fall back into the same patterns. Why? Because the friends, the people around you, they're all smokers or drinkers, or they don't exercise. And there's a saying of I'm going to mess it up, but the 5 people that you spend the most time with, that's who you basically become. So if you're trying to change a habit, you also need to think about your environment. The next one is that we aim for never again instead of less often. Never again. All or nothing. Diet starts Monday, so fuck it, I might as well eat everything. Have you ever done that? I'll raise my hand. I have. until I realized that that was not getting me the progress that I actually wanted. It's why I started, and I won't go into it here, but I just want to mention it, what I called a beautiful binge, where I accepted I'm going to binge. Just like last night, I realized I'm going to do this thing. So I can either sit there and accept it and do it with kindness and compassion and love, and do it in just a nice, calm environment rather than shaming myself. That's going to help you versus this all or nothing. Now, we make the habit too big, again, of like, I'm not going to drink ever again. Well, that's fine. But next point is we need to break it into smaller, easier things. If you say I'm never drinking again, I can already guarantee you 100%. I will stack my money on the odds, bet against that, and say, yes, you will. You are going to drink again. And so what happens in our mind is we do this, I'm never doing this thing ever again. It then becomes too big instead of doing micro habits. So if instead of, I'll just use this one of, instead of the drinking, we change the micro habit to, I'm going to be in bed asleep by 11 o'clock every single night. That's actually the new goal. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to naturally start to drink less because you want to wake up feeling refreshed. Now, we also underestimate, this is a really important point, we underestimate how automatic your habits are. Your habits run before your conscious mind even kicks in. That's why your subconscious is 90% of your brain, and things are on such automatic responses. Whether it's something, the way you think about yourself or other people, like let's say something Donald Trump does, God knows why, he does something, like another thing. What is your immediate automatic thought? For most people, they get really unhappy and suddenly your happiness is now dependent on someone else and what they did or didn't do. That's automatic. That didn't just happen overnight. The last one here that I just want to mention before we get into the 5 things to actually do is that we stop too soon. You start a new habit and you're doing great at it, but you stop it. And people think that a new habit takes 21 days. Did your addiction to whatever it is you're trying to break, did that take 21 days to do, or did that take days and weeks and years? So as I said before in the last episode, it takes 21 days to really start to help shift the brain and to see results in the body that gives us then the positive feedback loop. But it takes 96 days to actually make a real change in habit where it becomes more automated. It can take longer than that based on the circumstances, but we stop too soon. So with all of that being said, here's some really interesting research. 92% of this science-backed research on why habits fail and why we get so stuck is that 92% of people trying to change a habit will fail within the first few months and this is so important, so 92% of people will fail trying to change a habit within just the first few months when they treat it like willpower and they think willpower alone will do it. This illustrates why behaviors are so difficult, because willpower comes from your prefrontal cortex, which basically gets shut off, especially the more emotionally dysregulated you are. So if you're trying to break a habit that's tied to when you're feeling sad or mad or upset or need comfort, that's going to be really hard. Your willpower is not enough. So this is kind of why I wanted to throw all of those and the science and whatnot on it. So drum roll, please. Let's actually get into ways to break habits. This is what works. Change number 1 is that you need to update the way that you talk about the habit that you're trying to change. You need to update and upgrade the way you talk to yourself about this habit. What happens is that we decide, all right, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do something different. I I don't want to do that thing anymore. Okay. So just like the example that I gave you from last night of drinking the wine when I got a little emotionally triggered, I can either have the glass of wine and shame spiral, and I want you to think about what do you do, and shame spiral, and then say, God, Nikki, man, you fucked up. You can't even do this one thing right. You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. It was so simple. Just don't drink tonight. Right? You have no fucking willpower. And as I'm saying this, I want you just to think about how often do you say these things to yourself? Maybe the actual sentences are different, but how do you talk to yourself about the very thing that you're trying to change? What happens is that we start to beat ourselves down. And when I say down, this is the shame spiral. Think of taking a hammer and you're hammering yourself into the ground. It takes a lot of force to do that. This is what happens to ourselves, right? Our own psyche when we do this negative self-talk. And the more ingrained the habit is, like if you're smoking and you don't want to, and then you get the craving, what are the thought loops that come up? I want you and encourage you and really like kindly beg of you to start being a little bit nicer to yourself. Because if you want to actually make a change for a habit and make it stick instead of getting stuck, you need to change the way that you think about the habit and you speak to yourself. Here is the thing, and please just let this land, is that shame strengthens the old pattern. Shaming yourself into change does not work. Shame only strengthens the old pattern that you are trying to break. So point number 1 here, how do you make a change? You start to talk more kindly to yourself. The research shows when we are compassionate to ourselves, we actually put our body more into a place of rest and digest, parasympathetic. When we talk shit to ourselves and you shame yourself or you guilt yourself or you tell yourself what a failure or a fuck up or a this or you're ugly or whatever it is, right? And all humans do this, by the way. When you do that, your brain and body is releasing stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. So the very thing that you're trying to shift and change, you're now flooding your body with things that make you not feel good. And the more cortisol we have, the more inflamed we get, the worse your sleep is going to get. So then what happens is you're now dysregulated, not sleeping well, not feeling great. And then the shame spiral starts and keeps going. So research shows if you're kinder to yourself, self-compassion, it actually helps to reduce the stress chemicals. Please try this, because you cannot and will not make an actual change that lasts if you don't change the way that you're talking to yourself. So, number 2, habits do not break overnight. They loosen with repetition. I'm going to repeat that again. Habits do not break overnight. They lessen with repetition. Just like they get built with repetition, they lessen. So how do we actually make a change that sticks and doesn't get stuck? KISS. I love it. I love this analogy. Keep it stupid simple. So instead of focusing on I'm not eating sugar again, right? Well, okay, we both know that's not going to happen. That's not true. So you're already setting yourself up for failure. So when I say keep it stupid simple, we need to shift what we're actually trying to change. And I'll just use wine as the example, because this is definitely one for me, is I want to shift and listen to my language here, which goes back to number 1. I want to shift when and why I drink red wine. I'd like to drink red wine in celebration when I'm with friends over a good meal. I would like to shift it and do something different. So like going to yoga instead, for example, or meditate if I'm emotionally triggered. Notice I'm not saying I'm giving up alcohol or I'm never drinking again. I'm wanting to bring in a better habit while also changing the association with drinking red wine. So keeping it stupid simple. Now, based on that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at and say, the most important thing is going to be in the morning. I want to wake up at 7:30. That's it for 1 week straight. So then I put it on my smiley face journal. Smiley face journal, I discuss it in the resolutions episode. You give yourself a smile if you did it, an unhappy face if you didn't do it. And you need to make it stupid simple that you can do the thing every single day. So wake up 7:30, right? Or have 1 liter of water before 10 a.m. Give yourself a smiley face if you did it and an unhappy face if you didn't. And you keep track. You put it on your fridge or whatever. The reason that this works is it literally does the dopamine reward circuit, just as getting a like on Facebook or a heart on Instagram or a comment, right? The more that we get that positive feedback, it actually makes us feel good. So now you're just doing it for yourself. And think about this. If I set a goal of I'm going to wake up at 7:30 in the morning, instead of I'm not going to drink tonight, you tell me, which one do you think I'm going to do better at? I'm going to wake up. I'm excited to wake up at 7. I want to wake up. Oh God, I'm going to wake up refreshed 7:30 every morning this week, just for 1 week. But I know that if I say I'm not going to drink alcohol tonight, that's already kind of putting it down. And then if I do, right, shame spiral. So that's why, number 1, we change the language. Number 2 is keeping it stupid simple and understanding that habits do not break overnight. This resets your expectations. And let me put it in even plainer of English. Habits fade in layers. Habits fade in layers, not all at once. And the urge gets quieter, shorter, and less convincing. So therefore, it's not the immediate reaction of I'm going to yell at someone, right? So if you get cut off when you're driving, the immediate reaction might be, well, I'm going to stick my finger, give them the middle finger, fuck you, right? That's an immediate reaction. What we do is we're changing the habits by kind of rewiring the brain, neuroplasticity, so that you're doing it in these stages. This is how you create change that actually lasts. And here is something so important, you guys. And it's so not sexy, is that progress looks boring before it feels empowering. Progress feels boring and it looks boring before it becomes empowering. And that is the truth. That really is the truth. So you're just going to feel less attached to the things. And then all of a sudden, you're just not thinking about it. You're not you're not thinking about the food, the cupcakes, the this, the whatever. That's when we start to bring in other habits and we start shifting things. The brain is such a fascinating thing. Your willpower alone, you're going to fail 92%. Number 3, and you guys, this is so important. You need to have a drive or your why be bigger than the excuses that you make. It needs to be bigger than the cravings that you have. You need to get so clear on why you are doing this. It needs to have a bigger, more grandiose emotional response, because when the craving does kick in, by the way, and it will, you need to be able to go back to the why, the driving force, and it needs to have a sort of intensity and emotional scariness to your why. So I hope that one made sense, but it is so vitally important, because otherwise you are not going to make a change. When I went through my divorce and I decided to get divorced, my why of leaving my marriage was greater than the fear of the unknown and dealing with all the fallout. And my why was, I want to feel inner peace and joy again, because I didn't have that. And that was enough to keep me going through the uncertainty and all of the scary moments. And my body was literally falling apart. I had so many ailments and I was getting sick during this period. And I said, I want to feel good. That it was as simple as that, but it needed to be so strong for when the cravings kick in, or you think about the person or go back to the relationship. Number 4 here is that you need this. Oh, again, this is so important. You need to change your state before you change the behavior. You need to change your state. Okay, what does that mean? It means moving your body, standing up, shifting your environment, getting outside, going for a walk, listening to music, dancing. And this is why I've created the love pill, and I'm so excited. We're getting there. I'm so close to releasing it. The reason this is so important is because if you're in a spiral, especially a guilt or a shame spiral, and you're going to say, I'm not going to do that thing. I'm not going to eat the thing. I'm not going to whatever. Guess what? Your energy is stagnant. Your mind is stuck. So you're trying to make a change, but you're feeling stuck and stagnant. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can be my coach. Do you think change is really going to happen? Are you going to do the thing? No. The answer is no. So what do we do when we're wanting to make a change? And this goes for every single day. I'm not just talking about once. When you are thinking about having the thing that you want, you go for a walk, right? So I made a negotiation with myself back when I used to binge a lot. I started saying, and I made a decision. I'm going to allow myself to binge, but I'm going to walk to the store. And I didn't know all of the science and everything, which is so interesting now that I do. What would happen is just the very nature of getting outside and the fresh air. And now I'm changing my mind from the spiral to I'm thinking about different things, and I'm moving. More than half the time, I would walk home instead of getting the foods that I wanted. So we have to change our state. We have to change. If you're sitting there in a spiral, doom scrolling, I can guarantee you the next thing that you're going to do is the very thing that you're trying not to. The reason this is so important, though, and when I say changing your state, is because when you are dysregulated, when your nervous system is dysregulated, you are sleep deprived, you are angry at yourself, you might have the initial thought that I want to make a change. Like come January 1st or 2nd, we're all pretty tired and overwhelmed and sleep deprived. And yet at the same time, we're like, I'm going to make this big, huge change for January. That's why the second Friday, and I said it in the last podcast, the second Friday in January is known as Quitter's Day. Why? Because your motivation, your willpower, and your dopamine has all worn off, and your cravings are greater than the willpower. You're dysregulated. You're tired. What's more important when you're trying to make a change is actually to reset your nervous system versus trying to rely on willpower. Think about when you've had a really shitty night's sleep the next day. How easy is it to reach for the blueberry muffin or the whatever, and you skip the gym and you're just like falling asleep at your desk? You don't make good decisions when you're tired. Versus a day that you've had a really good day, a night's sleep, you feel more motivated. So that's it. Number 4 is changing your state. And that could be something like focusing on sleep as the primary thing, or going for a walk every day, or removing yourself or changing the environment that you're in. So here is the last point. And this one, you guys, is so important. This is the one that 95% of people don't do, but not you, since you're here listening to the podcast. It is not about breaking the habit. It is about replacing the reward. I'm going to say that again. Why you are feeling stuck when it comes to breaking habits is because it is not actually about the habit. It is about changing the reward. That is why in the beginning of this episode, I said, if you take nothing else, understand your trigger points, the cues, those moments where something activates in you and you reach for the whatever it might be. So what happens is people try to remove a habit, right? I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop drinking coffee. You try to change the habit without replacing the dopamine or whatever emotional relief or release that it gives you. So in simple terms, no replacement equals relapse. The replacement means you're changing the reward that you're getting. It's not, as I said again and again, it's not about the actual habit. It's the dopamine that you're getting from the habit. So the things that give the highest level of dopamine that we get the most addicted to are food, specifically sugar, right? We know that drugs, other substances that release like oxytocin in the brain and dopamine make you feel really good, highly addictive. We know that cigarettes, highly addictive. Alcohol, highly addictive. Nicotine, vapes, the pouches, the pens, the whatever it is, cigarettes, highly addictive. Video games for men, highly addictive. Porn for men. And why I say men is because they're hardwired a little bit differently, the brain. These are things that give off super high levels of dopamine. Scrolling. TikTok, for example, was literally designed to activate the dopamine reward cycle every 12 seconds. That is why the video goes up immediately and it keeps you there because of novelty. Within dopamine, I broke it down to the different receptors. There's D1 through 5. D1 is the novelty factor. When something is giving you novelty, so let's say you smoke a cigarette, right? You get the high, and then you come back, you smoke another cigarette, you're getting the novelty each time you do it. It's not this kind of constant thread. So if we don't replace the habit with something that is activating good feelings and positive emotions and dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, you are not going to succeed. So 90 to 95% of people who try to quit smoking relapse within a year if they quit without the support of a behavioral replacement, i.e. the dopamine. So for some people, and I've never been a smoker, so I can't really attest to this, but actually I'll give you the example, like with alcohol. So many people then switch from that, and then they're going out and they are having the mocktails and the this. That's great if it works for you. For me, that did not work because it doesn't give me any dopamine. I like to get dressed up, put on heels, go out, and I talk to people, and I'm having a martini. That's a really hard habit to change. If I don't find something else, this is why, like, maybe going to a gym class where I'm going to get that social interaction, or it's why I love my coaching program so much, because I get to connect with people and I'm getting that dopamine high. So if I don't replace going out to the restaurant or the bar where I'm talking to someone, right? So I'm getting that connection and I'm drinking, which gives me the dopamine. And I just say, nope, that's it. I'm going to stop going out. Oof, I can already tell you it's not going to work. I will, quote unquote, relapse, or I need to find a replacement. So this is the one that 95% of people don't understand, and don't even think about. But it's not about the soda or the sugar or the alcohol. It's addicted to the dopamine release that follows it. And what happens when the dopamine goes into our bloodstream system is that it calms your nervous system down. I mean, adrenaline, for example, like it might go up, but it's calming or giving relief to something emotional that happened. That's by understanding what's going on with the trigger points or the cues, and then what you're getting dopamine from, and then starting to shift it with new actions. And here's the key piece. You might have to play around to learn what the specific action, the new action is that gives you that dopamine release that makes you feel good as the other thing. And then you just got to keep doing it. And if you mess up and you have the drink or eat the cookie or have a cigarette, we can't go down the shame spiral. We got to be compassionate. Science shows us that, saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay. This is a process. All right. So changing how we talk to ourselves. Now, I hope that this episode landed for you, resonated. I ended up sharing more than I thought about stories and some of the science and all of that. So I really do hope that you take a lot from it, because everything in this is both science-backed. The psychology is there. I've been personally like every tip that I just gave you is what helped me overcome 2 eating disorders. It is what allowed me to completely transform my life. I don't have the negative self-talk that I used to. And I just gave you all the secrets. So please write them down, use them, listen to this again, send it to a friend. If you haven't left a review or subscribed, please do so. Your support means the world. And until next time, here's to a sharper life.